The morning sun had barely climbed over the hills when a terrible screech of twisting metal shattered the peaceful silence. A luxury SUV spun across the rain-soaked highway, smashed through a roadside barrier, and rolled into a shallow river below. Smoke poured into the air as frightened drivers slowed down, but no one dared move closer. Everyone watched from a distance, except one exhausted single father carrying groceries for his daughter. Without thinking about the danger, he threw everything aside and ran straight into the freezing water. Within minutes, one selfless decision would change two lives forever. Yet the man who became a hero would disappear before anyone even learned his name. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness, courage, and second chances still exist in this world, please take a moment to like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Legacy. Your support helps us continue bringing inspiring stories that remind the world that compassion still matters. The town of Ashbrook was already alive with the sounds of a busy weekday morning. Farmers prepared their markets, children hurried toward school buses, and office workers filled the highways leading into the city. Among them walked Silas Mercer, a 38-year-old widowed father whose life had become a constant balancing act. Every sunrise began before dawn. He packed lunches, prepared breakfast, helped his 9-year-old daughter Nora get ready for school, and then rushed toward his landscaping job, never once complaining despite carrying the weight of grief and responsibility alone. Life had not been kind to Silas. 3 years earlier, illness had taken his wife unexpectedly, leaving him with overwhelming medical bills and a frightened little girl who no longer smiled the way she once had. Since then, every dollar mattered. Every hour of work counted. His dreams had quietly been replaced by simple hopes that Nora would stay healthy, finish school, and never feel the emptiness he carried inside every day. That morning, after finishing an early gardening project, Silas stopped by a small grocery store to buy bread, milk, and Nora's favorite strawberries. He smiled when he imagined her excitement after school. It was a tiny luxury he rarely afforded, but today she deserved it after receiving excellent grades on her science project. As he stepped outside carrying the grocery bags, thunder echoed in the distance. Light rain had made the roads dangerously slippery. Cars sped by anyway, unaware that only moments later disaster would strike. A sleek black SUV approached the bridge at high speed. Its driver, Vivian Calder, one of the youngest CEOs in the country and head of a billion-dollar renewable energy company, had spent the entire night traveling between business meetings. Exhaustion blurred her focus for only a second. That single second was enough. The vehicle hydroplaned. The tires lost grip. The SUV slammed sideways into the guardrail before crashing over the edge. Everything happened so quickly that bystanders froze. Some reached for their phones. Others shouted for emergency services. Nobody moved. Nobody except Silas. Without removing his jacket, he sprinted toward the riverbank and dove into the icy current. The SUV had landed upside down with water rapidly filling the cabin. The windows refused to open. Smoke drifted from the engine while gasoline leaked across the surface. Silas ignored the danger. He kicked against the current, found a heavy rock beneath the water, and smashed the driver's side window with every ounce of strength left in his exhausted body. Shards exploded outward as freezing water rushed inside. Vivian was unconscious. Her seatbelt had jammed. Silas struggled desperately until his fingers finally released the buckle. Wrapping one arm around her shoulders, he fought against the current while dragging her toward the riverbank. The SUV disappeared beneath the water only seconds after they reached shore. Everyone watching stood speechless. Paramedics finally arrived, rushing toward the unconscious woman. Silas quietly stepped backward. His clothes dripped with muddy water. Blood trickled from deep cuts across his hands. He picked up the crushed grocery bag lying beside the road, noticed the ruined strawberries floating away in the river, smiled sadly to himself, and walked away before anyone asked who had saved her. By the time Vivian regained consciousness inside the hospital that afternoon, the mysterious rescuer had already returned to work. News channels exploded with headlines about the famous CEO surviving a tragic accident. Reporters praised emergency responders. Social media celebrated miraculous survival. Yet nobody knew the identity of the quiet father who had risked everything. When Vivian finally learned someone had rescued her before the ambulance arrived, she demanded security footage from nearby traffic cameras. Unfortunately, the heavy rain had blurred every image. Only one brief frame remained. It showed the silhouette of an ordinary man walking away carrying torn grocery bags. Weeks passed. Vivian recovered physically, but emotionally she could not forget the stranger who had expected nothing in return. For the first time in years, she questioned the world she had built around herself. She had spent decades measuring success through profits, investments, and headlines. Yet the person who had given her another chance at life had walked away without even waiting for a thank you. Meanwhile, Silas returned to normal life. Bills continued arriving. The roof leaked whenever storms came. His aging pickup truck barely started each morning. Still, every evening he helped Nora with homework before reading bedtime stories until she fell asleep. One afternoon Nora noticed fresh scars across his hands. Instead of telling her the truth, Silas simply smiled and said gardening sometimes fought back. Nora believed him. Children often believe the quiet sacrifices their parents hide. Several months later Vivian launched a nationwide initiative recognizing anonymous acts of courage. Newspapers called it the Quiet Heroes Project. Citizens submitted stories about ordinary people whose kindness had changed lives. Thousands of nominations poured in. Teachers, nurses, neighbors, firefighters, volunteers. Then one letter caught everyone's attention. It came from a little girl. Her handwriting was uneven, decorated with tiny flowers around the edges. She wrote that her father was the bravest man she knew because he always helped strangers before himself, even when nobody noticed. She mentioned the scars on his hands and explained that he never talked about what had happened by the river because he believed doing good should never require applause. Vivian froze while reading. Something inside her whispered that this was him. The company quietly investigated. Eventually security footage from a nearby grocery store confirmed everything. The anonymous hero was Silas Mercer. Vivian refused to send lawyers or media crews. Instead, one sunny Saturday morning she drove alone to the small community garden where Silas worked trimming roses. He didn't recognize her immediately. She recognized him instantly. Not because of the scars. Not because of the old work clothes. But because of the same calm eyes she remembered opening to after the crash, the eyes of someone who cared more about another person's life than his own. Silas looked surprised when she thanked him. He seemed almost embarrassed by the attention. He admitted he had only done what anyone should have done. Vivian quietly replied that the world would be a very different place if everyone truly believed that. She spent the afternoon helping plant flowers beside him. Neither spoke much about the accident. Instead they talked about Nora, gardening, books, and the importance of slowing down enough to notice people. For the first time in years, Vivian laughed without cameras surrounding her. She saw happiness living inside ordinary moments rather than expensive ones. Over the following months, their paths crossed often. Vivian anonymously funded repairs for the community garden without mentioning her company. Silas continued refusing expensive gifts whenever she offered them. Instead, he accepted only opportunities that benefited everyone: new playground equipment, scholarships for local children, and better equipment for volunteer rescue teams. He remained exactly the same humble father who had walked away from a miracle without expecting recognition. One autumn afternoon Vivian visited Nora's school during a charity event. She watched Silas cheering louder than every other parent during the children's performances. The billionaire CEO suddenly understood what real wealth looked like. It wasn't measured inside bank accounts. It lived inside loyalty. Inside sacrifice. Inside unconditional love. Soon afterward Vivian invited Silas and Nora to the opening ceremony of her company's newest environmental center. Instead of introducing herself as the founder, she invited Silas onto the stage. Before thousands of employees she shared the story of the anonymous man who had saved her life and disappeared into the crowd. The audience stood in complete silence. Many wiped away tears. Silas looked uncomfortable under the spotlight. He simply thanked everyone, then reminded them that every person has opportunities each day to save someone's life, not always from rivers or fires, but sometimes through kindness, forgiveness, patience, or simply refusing to walk away when another human being needs help. His words echoed through the auditorium long after the applause ended. Months later, Ashbrook looked different. The community garden flourished. Children played safely in new parks. Scholarship programs expanded. Volunteer rescue teams received modern equipment. None of it happened because a billionaire wrote checks. It happened because one ordinary father reminded someone powerful what truly mattered. Years later, visitors walking through the Riverside Memorial often noticed a simple bronze plaque. It carried no dramatic speech. No list of achievements. Only one sentence. The greatest heroes are often the ones who leave before anyone knows their names. People stopped to read it every day. Most walked away thinking about their own lives, wondering whether they would have run toward the river or stayed safely on the bridge. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, leave a comment telling us what kindness means to you, and subscribe to Kindness Legacy. Your support allows these powerful stories to reach people who may need hope today. Herb special request, in memory of every silent hero who has ever helped someone without asking for recognition, please comment, true heroes expect nothing in return. Sometimes the world changes because of billion-dollar decisions. But far more often, it changes because one ordinary person chooses compassion over fear. Silas Mercer never expected rewards, headlines, or applause. He simply saw a life in danger and acted. His courage reminded everyone that greatness is not found in fame or fortune, but in the quiet moments when no one is watching and we choose to do what is right anyway. And perhaps that is why the greatest heroes never need the world to remember their names, because the lives they touch become their legacy forever.